All right, story, let it come. Let this story arrive like an animal of breath to this place, to this moment we have made, to this circle of attention we create as the winter winds circle around us. Circle around us and speak and sing. So we invite in those powers, those unseen powers, the unseen and the seen powers, the earth, the air, the fire, the water around us. They are present in these stories, they live in them. So we offer up these words, these sounds to this story. Winter. Winter and a cold wind was blowing through the bare trees. Snow was coming down from the clouds, and the forest floor was covered in dead leaves. Darkness was at its height. Darkness was at its height. The sun shone, but in a feeble way. It was a time of sleep and of inwardness and of dreams. But in this winter, in this cold and this shrieking wind, there was a castle in the middle of a forest. And in this castle there was a feasting hall with a roaring fire. And in this feasting hall were gathered many people, lords and ladies, wise, strong, beautiful, lucky, dark, twisted, wonderful, strange, unique people, the court of a king and a queen. And the king and the queen sat at the head table. And a feast had been prepared, but the food had not yet been brought out. For the food was still in the kitchen, awaiting the word from those outside. So the tables were empty, the goblets, the glasses on the tables were empty. And in this moment, the king, whose name was Arthur, well, he stood up and he spoke. And he said, "Dear friends, dear ones gathered here on this day of days, on this day, the winter solstice, when darkness is at its height. On such a day as this, I declare, it is good that we nourish our bodies with the gifts of this earth. But we must also nourish our souls. Yes, for it is a universe crammed with marvels. And we must see a wonder. I declare, I will not eat today until I have seen a great wonder." So King Arthur sat down, and people waited. They were hungry, and they felt the emptiness in their bellies, and they saw the emptiness on the plates and in the glasses. They waited and nothing happened. How could a wonder come out of this frozen world, this sleeping world in which we were? And some clever person was about to stand up and say that everyone being there together in that warm banquet hall, well, that was wonder enough. But before that person could speak, there came a sound from the gate of the castle, a shout, and then a clattering of hooves. Yes, a horse was coming through the hallways of the castle towards the banquet hall. They could hear its hooves clanging and sparking on the stones. And then as everyone watched, into the hall there came a green horse. And on the back of this green horse was a green man. And the horse was green in its hooves and its tail and in the depths of its eyes. And the man was green as well, in his bushy beard and his fingernails and his hair and his tunic that he wore. And on the man's back there was a great shining battle axe. And in his right hand he held a sprig of green holly. Holly, the protector of the sprouts in the forest, of the oak sprouts in the forest. So people looked and they watched as this man came to the center of the hall. And then he got off his horse and went to the head table. And he placed that sprig of holly there before Arthur the king and Guinevere the queen. And he said, "I have a challenge for this court. I challenge this realm. And my challenge is this. I ask for someone to take this battle axe," and he pulled the axe from his back, "and to strike me a fierce and powerful blow. I will not defend myself. I will not resist. And in a year, this challenger shall receive a blow from me. That is what I ask of this court." So he spoke, and his words rang out. And people, it must be said, no one jumped up to take this challenge in hand. People looked around, looked at the floor, the strong men, the beautiful women, the beautiful men, the strong women. They did not jump up. They looked at the floor, looked at their rings. And then, well, Arthur cleared his throat, as though he himself were about to stand up and take this challenge. But just then, Sir Gawain, one of the flowers of that court, he stood up from his table and said, "I accept this challenge." And he stood up and he walked away from his table towards the Green Knight in the center of the hall. And the Green Knight spoke, "Ah, Sir Gawain, good, yes, yes, come, come." And he took the great battle axe from his back and he handed it to Sir Gawain. Sir Gawain, who you must know was a fierce and strong fighter, but a generous, compassionate man, a man who knew poetry and who knew the thoughts of another and the feelings of another. Sir Gawain, who, it must be said, loved all the ladies and who was loved by all the ladies in return. So he stood there, he took the great battle axe from the Green Knight, and the Green Knight said, "Sir Gawain, give me a good fierce blow. Yes, don't hold back. Give me a good fierce blow." And he bent down, the Green Knight did. He knelt on the floor of this banquet hall. He even took his hand and he moved his hair up like this to show his bare neck there. What should Sir Gawain do? It was a feast on the winter solstice. Should he kill a man there right before the feast? That did not seem right. But this man was demanding it. This strange and magical man was challenging the honor of the entire court to do this. So he took hold of that axe. He raised it high into the air, and for a moment the eyes of everyone there was reflected in the shine of that blade. And then suddenly he brought it down, whistling through the air, shoom, and it struck a spark from the stones, and the head of the Green Knight was severed from his body and rolled away, and the floor was covered in blood, and everyone gasped, and the head rolled under a table, and Sir Gawain stepped back. But the body of the Green Knight did not slump to the floor. No. In fact, it stood up. Without a head, it walked to Sir Gawain. It took the axe and put it on its back, and then it walked to the table where its head was, and reached down, fished down under that table, grabbed its own head by the hair, held it up for the whole court to see. And the head spoke and said, "Sir Gawain, I will see you in a year." Sir Gawain said, "How am I to find you? Who are you? Where do I find you?" "I am the Green Knight of the Green Chapel. Everyone knows how to find that place." And tucking his own head under his arm, he got onto his horse, turned around, and galloped out of the hall. And Arthur said, "Friends, let us eat." And the servants came out, and they cleaned up the blood from the floor. Sir Gawain stood for a moment. He looked at the nick in the stones there where the axe had bitten into the stones. He was in a sort of a daze. And then he went and he sat down as well. And soon the blood was cleaned up, and the feast came out of the kitchen. Roast meats and cake and bread and cheese and ale, the gifts of this earth, the carrots, the potatoes, the lovely things that nourish our bodies. And song began, and stories began. And lights glimmered in everyone's eyes, and people told stories, long, beautiful stories that had funerals and laughter inside them, and swans, amazing things. It was a marvelous feast. And Sir Gawain, every now and then, would think about what had just happened and remember his agreement. But then he would be distracted by a drink, by a joke, by a laughter, by some song. So the feast went on, and when the feast was over, everyone went off to the sleep in their rooms in that castle. And darkness covered the world, took hold of that kingdom. And the next day the sun rose, the powerful sun, the sun which shone for a little longer that day, for it was the day after the winter solstice. And the sun shone down, and it warmed the earth with its light, and it changed things that happened on the earth. For every day the sun shone a little more. Day by day the power and the heat of the sun increased. And so, eventually, months went by, moons went by in the sky. Finally, winter itself was defeated by the spring. And spring came and took its place on the throne of the year. And the flowers began to muscle their way up out of the dark earth and to flourish. Those strong flowers, the powerful ones, the crocus, for example, coming out of the darkness there. And the bees came and hummed amid those flowers, and the birds came back and sang in the trees. So spring was there, the glory of spring. But spring, too, in its time was defeated by the summer. The broad, wild heat of summer came, and the days were very long indeed. And many adventures happened at this time to Gawain and to all the members of that court. Adventures too numerous to tell, and there was laughter and there was sorrow as well. And still, every so often, Sir Gawain would be in that banquet hall, going from one table to the other, perhaps, and he would look and see that mark in the floor, and he would remember his agreement. How would he find this man? Was he going to his death? Was this the last year of his life? All these thoughts whirled through him, but then he would forget and think about other things, about the cherry and the strawberry and the plum and the beautiful fruits of that season. So time went on, and the birds sang in the skies, and then finally autumn came. Autumn defeated the summer, and cold winds began to blow. A time of harvest, harvest which is death to certain things and joy to others. Death and joy commingled together, death and life. For the apples were ripe on the branches, and they were pulled from those branches and eaten by the people there, the two-leggeds, the humans. And animals were killed and roasted, and it was harvest time. The hay was taken in from the fields, a glorious time, golden and twilit as well. And now more and more Sir Gawain thought about what was awaiting him on the winter solstice, when he must go again to find the Green Knight in his green chapel. So time went on. Time went on, and then came All Souls' Night. Yes, that key moment when darkness and light are wrestling and dancing and singing together. And that night passed, and the next morning Gawain awoke, and in his heart he said to himself, "Today I must set out. Today I will set out to find the Green Knight in his green chapel." And a little while later he said these same words to Arthur the king and Guinevere the queen. And they said, "Yes, indeed, Sir Gawain, you have made an agreement. You must honor this agreement. You must take up this challenge. So our blessings go with you." So all the court heard that he was leaving, and it must be said many were sad and sorrowful. Perhaps he was going to his death. Perhaps he would not come back. What could happen? A blow from a brutal axe like that from this strong, burly man. What could happen? Well, he saddled up his horse. He got his chainmail, his sword, his shield. Many people wept to see him go, and off he went into the autumn forest. And his horse went here and there, and the leaves rustled and whispered at the hooves of the horse there. And a cold wind blew through the air, though the leaves were still golden and rich and marmalade-colored and scarlet and beautiful on the trees. And he rode forward into the world, and he spoke with everyone he could, asking them, "Where is the Green Knight? Where is his green chapel? How do I find him?" And no one knew. No one knew. He said everyone had known, but, well, nobody knew. He asked old men, old women, little children. He asked everyone he could. He journeyed far and wide and had many adventures. It was hard traveling often. Sometimes he would sleep under a bush in the forest. Sometimes he would sleep next to a twisted tree on the moor there, or under a rock somewhere. He became thin, and he was often cold, shivering there on his horse, journeying through the landscape looking for this green chapel, in a time that did not seem to have much greenness in it. It is said he spoke with the laughing man of Britain, the man who laughs every day and will only weep once, and when he weeps it means the end of the world. It is said he had many adventures as he went through the forests and the fields, and he became sorrowful in his heart. What if I never find this place? What a defeat that would be. Never to even show up for this challenge because I couldn't even find the place. That would be a horrible defeat. So in a despondent mood, late on an autumn day, he was going through the forest, and he came to a great oak forest. Huge oak trees towering up like thunderstorms rooted in the ground. Beautiful, twisted, fantastic oak trees like you or I have never seen. He was riding between these trees, hearing the mournful wind, and then far off he saw a light. You know how it is. You're in darkness and you see a light, so you go towards the light, of course. He went towards the light, and there was a fabulous palace there, a castle made of the materials of that place, made of the beams of oak and made of great boulders taken from the ground. A huge, magnificent castle there, made of wood and of stone. And he knocked 3 times on the gate, and a voice came and said, "Who goes there?" And he said, "I am Sir Gawain. I am on a quest. I am a knight from the kingdom of King Arthur, and I am on a quest." "Ah, knight on a quest," said the voice. "We love this when knights are on quest, when they have questions they cannot answer. Please enter." And the doors opened, and Sir Gawain went in, and servants came, and they came and took his horse away to be cared for. And then a large, burly man with a big beard came forward, and he said, "Aha! Welcome, Sir Knight. Yes, what did you say your name is?" "Sir Gawain." "Oh, Sir Gawain, yes, welcome, welcome. I am Lord Bertram. People call me the King of the Forest. Yes, you are on a quest, I hear. Well, we love knights on quest. Yes, to be on a quest, that's to be flowing in the river. To have all the answers, that's to be a stone dead on the shore. No, you were flowing, you were alive. You have a problem, I can see it in your eyes. Well, have no fear. You can rest up here. Come, we're about to have a feast." So Sir Gawain was led by Lord Bertram to a great feasting hall. And Lady Bertram came as well, and they were introduced, and others came as well and sat down in that banquet hall, and the food was brought out, and a bard sang a song about the swan who flies forever above the sky, and the tree whose grandson is an acorn that sings the song of the water wheel at the end of the universe. Marvelous songs happened, and laughter and sorrow was there as well. Because Sir Gawain, well, he was troubled. Yes, he told Lord Bertram, the King of the Forest, his problem, what he was seeking. But the King of the Forest, Mr. Bertram, he'd said, "Oh, it's no problem. You've actually come to just the place. Because the Green Chapel, it's not far at all. I know exactly where it is. I know exactly where it is." That's what he said. "And you can rest up here. You've got, let me see, you've got 3 days. 3 days until the winter solstice. Why don't you rest up here and rest and recuperate? Take it easy. You've had some hard traveling. As for me, well, I'm going to go hunting every day. I love to be out there in the wild, in the forest, in the wild places of this world. It makes my blood hum, yes, to be out there. So I'm going hunting with all my hunters. We will hunt every day, and in the evening we will return to this lovely castle. And let's make an agreement, you and I. Yes, let's make an agreement. That's it. I will go hunting every day. And at the end of each day, I will give you what I obtain in my hunting. And you, sir, yes, what you obtain, what you receive from resting up here in this beautiful palace, well, you will give that to me. What do you say?" Well, Sir Gawain thought this sounded like a pleasant game. So he said, "Sure, yes, let's do that, absolutely." "Wonderful," said Bertram, "wonderful, yes. Rest up here and all shall be well." So they passed the rest of the night in laughter and telling stories, and then everyone went off to sleep. Now in the morning, Lord Bertram, he was up early out there, and he blew on a hunting horn 3 times, yes, and those notes rang out through the forest. And he and 40, that's what the story says, 40 of his men went off on their horses with all these dogs off into the forest. And on this day, Lord Bertram said, "Gentlemen, today we will hunt the deer, but the stags we will let them go. Yes, it would be dishonorable of us. Today we hunt only the does, the females. Yes, we will hunt them today." And so the dogs inhaled the smells of the forest. With their marvelous noses, they inhaled all the history of every patch of ground. and they could smell where the raccoon had walked, where the snake had been 3 days before, where a dead tree was. All the history of the forest came into their noses, and they could see the future in this way by knowing the smells, finding the tracks of animals. And they found the tracks of several doe, and they began to go through the forest following the deer, and the men on the hunters on their horses followed as well, the dogs barking. And soon enough, they saw the deer flashing away through the forest, and they chased them up towards the high hills. But there were men there, beaters we call them, with sticks and with bells, making a great noise, and they scared the deer and ran them down to the river valleys there, where Bertram and his men ambushed these deer, and they attacked these deer, the arrows flying through the air like this. One doe jumped over the river, but the arrow caught her right there in the breast, found her heart, the light fell from her eyes, she crumpled crashing into the river. Another scampered into the grasses, but a man fired an arrow, thung, it went just like that, into her breast. The stone point found her heart, she too crumpled and died there. After them, said Lord Bertram, after them. Meanwhile, back at the castle, well, Sir Gawain, he had slept late. Yes, he had slept late. He'd had some hard traveling. In a room the color of seashells, pink and blue and off-white, he was sleeping late under silk sheets with a down comforter there, just lovely, not under a bush, not in a field or a ditch somewhere, in a nice soft bed. He was sleeping as the wind howled outside. And in the morning he was awoken by a sound. And the sound was his bedroom door clicking open. And into the room, with a whisper of her dress, came Lady Bertram. And she came and she sat down on the bed in a robin's egg blue gown. And she was sitting there. He could feel the warmth of her hip against his right leg. He was awake, but he pretended to be asleep. He could hear her breathing there, her breath going in and out. After a while, he decided it would be best to pretend to awake. So he stretched. Lady Bertram, good morning. Good morning, Sir Gawain. How are you? I'm fine. How are you, lady? I'm excellent. Well, did you sleep well? Yes, I slept well. Oh, good. Sir Gawain, do you like music? Yes, of course I like music. Yes, I do. What kind of music do you like? I mean, do you like the music of one instrument alone or of many instruments together? Well, said Sir Gawain, I guess I like them both about the same. Ah, she said. Well, as for me, the most beautiful music for me is the music of two instruments singing together. Two melodies wrapped around each other, twisted into one beautiful and ecstatic golden thread. And by that thread we are connected to the joy that sings in the heart of the plum and the peach and the apple on the branch, this eternal sweetness that is in all things. Sir Gawain, that is my favorite kind of music, two voices singing together, making one melody. Sir Gawain, would you like to make such music with me? Lady, music is very fine, but silence is also very beautiful, and I think silence is really the mother of all sound. And right now, I think silence is probably the most beautiful thing right now. Ah, she said. Well, perhaps you'd allow me to break this silence with a good morning kiss. I will not refuse you that, dear lady. So she knelt down and she kissed him on the cheek. And then she stood up and with a whisper of her dress went out into the hall and closed the door behind her. And Sir Gawain shook his head, got up, shook himself off, put on his clothes, and went out into the castle. And he spent the day in rest and relaxation, wandering through the beautiful hallways of this castle. And he didn't see Lady Bertram all day, for it was a large castle. Meanwhile, out in the field, they had killed many of the does there. They were there beside the river there, and they were all a great kill, many dead animals there. And they took their knives and swords, and they cut into the necks of the does and pulled the intestines and the guts out, steaming into the winter air. And they fried them up with blood and with bread there, and fed them to the dogs, who were happy to devour these treats. And there was blood all over their muzzles there, devouring those intestines and the guts of the deer. And then they cut around the heads of the deer, and they peeled the skin back like this. And then they took the deer and put them on a pole and took all of them, and they went thundering back through the forest towards the palace, where they discovered they were out of focus. There we are. Maybe now we're in focus. And so they went to the palace there, and they came in the gate of the palace. And there were servants there welcoming them and taking their horses away to be cared for. And Gawain was there, and he welcomed Lord Bertram. Lord Bertram, how are you? I'm pretty good. Yeah, look at this. Look at all this meat here. Yes, all the does we killed today. A good day out there in the wild. And of course, I remember our agreement. Yes, I remember. So all of this meat here, all of this goes to you, sir. And you, Sir Gawain, what did you receive today in your day of rest and relaxation here in the palace? And Sir Gawain looked him in the eyes and leaned forward and kissed him on the cheek. "Baha!" said Bertram. "Excellent, excellent. Good, good, good. Let us go feast together, yes." So off they went to the feasting hall, and once again they were all there. Lady Bertram came as well, with a twinkle in her eyes. Many others as well. The bards sang the song about the horse who lives in the sky, made out of obsidian, and the old dreams of Neanderthals and the dreams of the future. Marvelous things, great stories were sung into that room, and everyone enjoyed their time there. And when the time was right, everyone went off to sleep. Well, the next morning, once again, Lord Bertram was up early. He had his hunting horn. He blew it 3 times. The notes rang out into the forest. And he and all of his men on horseback, and the dogs as well, they went plunging out into the forest there, after seeking whatever they could find. And the dogs once again inhaled the smells of the forest, the tracks, the history of that place. Barking and curious, they went in every direction. And finally they found the scent of a boar, a great boar. And they followed this trail here and there, over a dead tree, here around some bushes. They found it. Finally they found the boar himself. And they pursued this boar down from the forest down towards the river. And they cornered the boar there in some grasses and some stones. They went forward with their swords towards it. Suddenly the boar came jolting out of the grasses, went straight for one of the dogs, and with its tusks it opened that dog up from the groin to the head, threw it aside, just shreds of meat, took another dog and bashed its head against a stone. The skull was crushed, another dead dog, and the men fired their arrows thunk through the air, but the arrows just glanced off the tough hide of this boar, and the boar went crashing through the grasses. After him, said Lord Bertram. Meanwhile, back at the castle, Sir Gawain had slept late. Yes, it was becoming a habit. Rest and relaxation there. Nice silk sheets, a down comforter, outside the cold, just to remind us how cozy we are inside. Wonderful to be inside, in sleep and in dreams. But then he was awoken. Once again, the door clicked open to his room. And again, today in a green gown, Lady Bertram came sauntering in. She sat down on the bed. Again he felt the heat of her hip against his right leg. Again he pretended to sleep, and she was there breathing in and out. And then she bent down and kissed him on the cheek. Lady Bertram, good morning, good morning. Yeah, good morning, Sir Gawain. How are you today? I'm excellent. I slept well. How are you? I'm fine, very fine, Sir Gawain. Sir Gawain, are you an educated man? I suppose. Knights have to learn a lot of things. Yes, I've had to learn this and that. Wonderful, she said. What do you know about love? Love? Well, yeah, I mean, we'll have some poems and stuff. Yes, we had to study love. Yes, we sure, a little bit, yeah. Sir Gawain, love is a beautiful thing. It's a school we must enter over and over. I would like to learn about the arts of love. Sir Gawain, would you like to teach me about love? Lady Bertram, love. I think perhaps you know much more about love than I do. Sir Gawain, love is a school we must enter over and over again. It is a perpetual education of the heart. And every new relationship is a new teaching in the school of love. So yes, I wish to remain in this school and to learn many things that only can be learned when you're in the swim and the fire of that beautiful, unseen, fantastic element that is love. Sir Gawain, please teach me. Lady Bertram, it's good to learn. It's good wisdom. It's good. It's good to feed the mind and the body. But I'm hungry actually. So I think I will go have some food today now, and perhaps see you a little later. Ah, she said. Well, perhaps you'll allow me to give you a good morning kiss. I will not refuse you that, my lady. And she bent down and kissed him on the cheek. And then she stood up, and with a whirl and a whisper of her dress, out she went out the door and closed it behind her. Out she went into the morning. Sir Gawain got up out of the bed, looked around, blinked, whoa, all right, another morning, put on his clothes, got ready, went out into the castle. And he had a lovely day of rest and recuperation, wandering the hallways, going to the library of the palace, yes, looking at the tapestries, a fine day. And he didn't see Lady Bertram at all, because it was a large castle. Meanwhile, out in the field, there was the boar. They'd chased that boar again into a cold hole by the river there. It was down in that, rooted in that hole, and there the king of the forest, Lord Bertram, was wading across the river with his sword drawn, the dogs all around to ambush this boar, and suddenly it jolted out, went straight for Lord Bertram, and he took his sword and he plunged it into the heart of that boar, and the tip found the heart, and the light fell from its eyes, and it crumpled down into the water, and blood began to flow down the water, and the dogs took hold of the great beast and dragged it up onto the shore there, and all the men gave a great hurrah, and they took their knives and they reached in, cutting into the neck of the boar, reached in as before. They found the guts and the intestines, pulled them out so not to spoil the meat, and they were steaming in the winter air there. They fried them up with bread and blood once again. The dogs devoured it, yes, the dessert for them, their victory after finding this boar. They took their knives and they hacked and cut around the neck of the boar, peeled off its big, thick, husky skin. It was all red, wet meat there. And they strung it up on a great pole, and with 3 great shouts of victory, they took that boar off through the trees back towards the castle. And they got there towards the end of the day, arriving to that castle. Indeed. Sorry, here we go. I'm out of focus. There we are. Arriving to that castle, and the doors opened, and servants came and took their horses away, and Sir Gawain was there. And he spoke with Lord Bertram. How are you, Lord Bertram? I'm good, Sir Gawain. Yes, look at this. Look at this beast we got today. Yes, that's all we got, but man, what a monster, huh? Check him out here. Yes, well, according to our agreement, this is all going to you. For I have not forgotten our agreement. No. We must share everything we obtain on these very interesting and magical days. So I will give you the meat of this animal. And you, sir, what have you received in your day here of rest and relaxation in this castle? And Sir Gawain looked him in the eyes, leaned forward, and kissed him once on each cheek. Aha! Excellent, Sir Gawain, excellent. All right, then, let us go to the feasting hall and have a feast. So off they went, and a feast they did have, and there was ale and cakes and bread and cheese and marvelous things and roast meat as well, and the bard sang once again a song he'd never sung before, a song that came out of the air and plunged its way down into the depths of the sea and came back again changed as a comedian who could make even people laugh at funerals. So it was a marvelous feast, yes, and Lady Bertram was there, her eyes twinkling, and there was a fire in the hearth. A good time was had by all. Well, when this feast was over, once again, everyone went off to sleep. Yes, sleeping and darkness covered the world. Everyone slept and everyone dreamed. And the next morning, the 3rd day, almost the day of the winter solstice, again Lord Bertram was there, and he blew 3 notes on his horn, and they rang out through the forest. And he and his hunters and his dogs plunged out into the wilderness, seeking the animals of that forest. And the dogs inhaled what they could there from the forest there, smelling the history of every patch of ground there. And after a while, they found the trail of a fox. Yes, a marvelous red-colored beast, the color of fire, that was very tricky and hard to find. They pursued this fox here and there along the edges of fields, over dead logs here and there. Where is he? He's doubled back. There he is. Hard to find. Here and there they went, the dogs barking a chase all through that day, here and there. And meanwhile, back at the castle, well, Sir Gawain slept late once again. A night on a long journey, he slept late in that bed with the silk sheets there and the down comforter. And as before, he was awoken by a sound, the clicking of his door, as Lady Bertram came in the room. today in a red gown with earrings as well, and she came and she sat there on the side of the bed. And Sir Gawain could feel her there, could hear her breathing in the air. And she bent down and she kissed him on the cheek. And he awoke. Good morning, Lady Bertram. How are you? I'm fine, Sir Gawain. How are you? How did you sleep? I slept well. Yes, I slept very well. How about you? Good. Yes, I slept very well. Sir Gawain, do you like to hunt? Yes, sure. Yeah, I suppose. Yes, I like to hunt. Yes. How about you? Well, sure, I like to hunt as well, she said, Sir Gawain. I do. But the hunting is a great joy, to pursue something through the forest, to find it and seek it out, to know that animal by its tracks and its smells and its traces, to know it so intimately, to pursue it through the forest. That is a great joy. But I must say it is also a joy to be hunted. Yes, to know that you are being tracked through the forest. Others are following you, finding you out, to be the treasured one, the desired one. That is a glorious thing to be. And so, Sir Gawain, I would say, the door is closed. My husband is out in the wild. Sir Gawain, would you like to hunt me? Lady Bertram, he said, well, hunting is a great joy, it's true, and there are times when fierceness and weapons are called for, but also sometimes a kingdom is maintained by laying those weapons aside. Yes, putting them aside, yes, and sometimes peace and quiet are good to maintain the honor, the strength of a kingdom. So I think now this is a time to lay the tools of hunting and weaponry aside. Ah, she said, well, we've spent such a marvelous time here, Sir Gawain. I must give you something. May I give you a ring? Would you like a ring from me? No, Lady Bertram, please. No, I could not accept a ring. Ah, she said, well, how about a scarf? Yes. And she pulled from her bosom, still warm with the heat of her body, she pulled out a green scarf, and she said, Sir Gawain, how about this scarf for you? This is a magical scarf. It is said that whoever wears this scarf, well, that person will be magically protected, and they will be protected from bad things and the troubles of the body if they have this green scarf. I would like to give this scarf to you. Well, Sir Gawain thought about this. He really should not accept anything from her, no gifts, for that was a sort of agreement in a way, but at the same time he was facing a dangerous trial very soon, the next day, and a magical scarf might be just the thing, actually. So he said, I will accept your scarf, dear lady. Wonderful, she said. She reached out, she put the scarf over his head, tied it around him, kissed him on the forehead there, and said, Sir Gawain, this is my gift to you, so you may remember this sweet time we've spent together here in this beautiful seashell-colored room. Thank you, my lady. And now I will see you later, she said, and she bent down and kissed him one last time on the lips, and then turned, and with a whisper of her dress, went out the door and closed the door behind her. Sir Gawain got out of bed, shook himself this way and that, woke up, all right, put on some clothes, off he went into the castle. He had some breakfast, some food, and he enjoyed a quiet and marvelous, wise, wonderful day there in that palace. Meanwhile, out in the field, well, they'd finally cornered that fox. Yes, they found him at the edge of a field there. He'd gone here, there. Finally, one of them fired an arrow. Shung! It went right there into the heart of the fox, and that quick-witted, clever edge being, well, he was killed. And the light went from his eyes, and they took hold of that fox and held him up into the air and gave 3 shouts. Ba, ba, ba! Victory at last! Aha! And they took him on a great pole, and they carried him back towards the castle. And there it was the end of the day, the wind moving mournfully through the trees, of course, as it often does this time of year, and the gates opened, and there were the servants to help with the horses, and there was Sir Gawain. Sir Gawain, said Bertram. Ah, yes, how are you? I'm good, how are you? How was your hunting? Pretty good. Well, not that great, actually. All we got is this fox, but he gave us a good chase through the wild. Yes, they're clever. Quite a puzzle he had us unlock just to find this beast, but find him we did, so here he is. And I say, this animal is for you. Yes, we've made an agreement, you and I, so I have not forgotten it. No, this meat of this fox here, this dear one, shall go to you, Sir Gawain. And as for you, what have you received on this day of rest in my castle? Sir Gawain looked him in the eyes, And then he kissed him 3 times, once on each cheek and once on the lips. Baha! Excellent! Good, Sir Gawain. Yes, yes. Let us go feast, of course, a feast. So off they went to the feasting hall. Lady Bertram was there with a twinkle in her eyes, and many others as well. The wine was poured, the bread, the cheese, the roast meats. The bard sang a song again, because the bard always has a song, 1001 songs, which are stories which sing and sing into our bones and make us live in a grand and luminous way. So this happened, this feast. But the thing is, well, there was laughter, but there was sorrow there in this hall as well, because Sir Gawain remembered what he was facing. Tomorrow would be the winter solstice, the day where he must go to meet the Green Knight in the Green Chapel. Was this the last such moment like this he would have, the last feast in his life? Was he going to his death tomorrow? How would he even find this place? He asked Lord Bertram again. The Green Chapel, you know where it is? Yes, yes, don't worry, Sir Gawain. I know right where it is. In fact, I will send a servant tomorrow with you to show you exactly where to go. Have no fear, it's not far at all. Drink and be merry. Well, he tried to drink and be merry, but, well, it was weighing on him, this test he was going to undergo, possibly his death. But after a while, they all decided to go off and sleep. It felt like the best thing to do, and everyone slept, and everyone dreamed. But Sir Gawain, well, he didn't sleep well. No, thinking about the Green Chapel, the Green Knight with his great shining axe there, destined to meet him and his body. He did not sleep well. He was up early. And so before dawn, he went down to the stable. He got on his horse. But the servants were clever and aware of what was going on, so one servant came, the one sent by Lord Bertram himself, the king of the forest. And this servant said, Sir Gawain, I will guide you to the Green Chapel. All right then, let us go. So they got on their horses, and off they went out of that castle into the wild whispering wood. And they went this way and that, and the leaves rustled beneath their feet there, and some snow trickled down from the clouds as well, the gray clouds insulating, hiding, muffling the earth. And as they went through that forest, away from those great oak trees, this servant, this guide, began to speak. And he said, Sir Gawain, you must know, you're going to a place, well, it's a very dangerous place. There are many stories about people dying in this place. It's a fierce and jagged part of this world. So I would say, honestly, now that it's just you and me, I would say, don't go. Just go. Don't keep this agreement. Go somewhere else. I will not breathe a word of it. Your honor will be safe with me, sir. But this way you will preserve your life. Don't go. There's so many stories of people dying horribly at this Green Chapel. Do not go. And Sir Gawain said, I am a knight from the court of King Arthur. I have made an agreement. I will keep that agreement. All right, said the man. But don't say, well, you know, I didn't warn you. And I can't go the whole way. I dare not set foot in that place. Understood, said Sir Gawain. So they rode on their horses here and there through the forest, and finally they came to a great green gully. Amazing, these rocks going on either side with green moss everywhere and icicles coming down from the rocks there, snowflakes falling down, and their horses' hooves crunched through the snow on the ground, and the cold wind blew, and a raven cackled in a tree as though it was seeing everything and enjoying how this whole story was visible in the eyes of this raven watching, the black eyes. And they went, and then the man said, Sir Gawain, I can go no farther. If you keep going down this gully, you'll get to a place where the land kind of empties out there, opens out, and there you will find the Green Chapel. You cannot miss it. Good luck. Blessings to you, sir. And to you, said Sir Gawain. And the servant turned and rode galloping back towards the palace of the Lord of the Forest, Bertram himself. And Sir Gawain went forward down this great green gully there, with rocks on either side, ice, snow under his feet, and finally the land did open out there. And he looked, and he saw a wide place, a few crows in a stunted tree, a heap of boulders there with moss and grasses around them, but no chapel. He looked around. Where is this chapel? There's no chapel here. There's nothing I would call a chapel. And then he turned. Though he'd seen it already, he looked again. He looked at the pile of boulders. Is that the chapel? Is that the place? Could it have been a building once? It was just a heap of old stone, ancient, filled with the dreams of this earth. Perhaps sleeping stone there. There was a little crevice in there, a hole. Could that be it? He didn't think so, but he tied up his horse all the same, and paced around in the snow, very cold. This must be the Green Chapel. This must be it. And he yelled out to the sky in aggravation and frustration, "I am Sir Gawain. I have kept my agreement. I am here." And his voice echoed off the rocks far off in the distant hills. And there was no answer. And the wind blew and the snowflakes came down. And then he heard a sound. Scritch, scritch, scritch. What was that? It was the sound of someone sharpening an axe. It was coming from inside the boulders there. Scritch, scritch, scritch. Someone was sharpening an axe. And suddenly, out of a crack in those boulders shouldering out, came the Green Knight himself, with a great bushy beard, green from head to toe, and with his large battle axe there. And he said, "Aha! Sir Gawain, you have come, you have kept your agreement. Good man, yes, indeed. There we are, sorry. You have kept your agreement. Welcome, sir. You are in the place. Let us do this thing." "Yes," said Sir Gawain, "yeah, let's." So Sir Gawain knelt down before the Green Knight. He did. He knelt down, and just as he'd seen the Green Knight do, he bent his head, and he moved his hair up away from his neck there, giving the man a clear shot of his neck. "Good," said the Green Knight. "Prepare yourself." And he hoisted that axe high up into the air there, and for a moment the whole scene was reflected in that blade, and then he brought it whistling down towards Sir Gawain like this. But at the last moment Gawain flinched and moved aside. So with expert skill the Green Knight moved the axe aside as well, and he said, "Hey, no flinching! Are you flinching, sir? What kind of a knight are you? Did I flinch there in that feasting hall? No, no, no. You must be strong. You must take this blow, sir." "I'm sorry," said Sir Gawain. "I will remain." All right, let's do this again." So he took the axe up. He got it up there, way up into the sky, and then he brought it down. Shoom! But this time he faked Sir Gawain out, and he stopped the blade just a couple inches from the neck. Just testing, Sir Gawain." But Sir Gawain, it was true, he had not flinched at all. He'd been solid like a rock, like a tree rooted in the ground there. He had not flinched. "Strike your blow," said Sir Gawain. "All right," said the Green Knight. "Here it comes." And he raised the axe high up, and he brought it down. Shoom! And with expert skill, he moved the axe aside so it just slashed the side of Sir Gawain's neck, and the blood went dripping into the snow. But his head was on his body. He was not seriously wounded. And the axe bit into the snow beside him, and Sir Gawain leapt up and grabbed hold of his sword and his shield, and he said, "Aha! You have struck your blow, sir. You have struck your blow. Do not strike me again. If you attempt to do so, I will defend myself." "Good job, Sir Gawain," said the Green Knight. "Have no fear. Do not be angry. This was a game and agreement between us. You have done well. You have done well, sir. Our agreement has been satisfied. You have received this blow from me, sir. Good job. And now tell me, how does that green scarf feel around your neck?" The green scarf? "Yes, the green scarf, the one from my wife." "Your wife?" Yes, for I am the king of the forest, for I am Lord Bertram, and I am the Green Knight. And that was indeed my wife there in that castle, sir. And you were tempted 3 times, and so I have struck you 3 times. And you took this scarf. You should not have taken this scarf. No, this is a stain on your honor, sir. You never should have agreed to take this from her. This is a blight on your honor. But it's true, many another knight would have done far more. So because of this, I have given you a wound in the neck there that you will long remember. But you have done well, Sir Gawain. My blessings upon you." "Thank you, sir," said Sir Gawain. "Thank you." "And now," said the Green Knight, "the honor of your court and of yourself is secure. And I must say, it is a cold night out here. It will be a cold night again. If you like, you may spend the night in our castle once again." "No, thank you," said Sir Gawain. "I must go back to King Arthur and to my friends and tell them that I'm all right." "All right," said the Green Knight. "You have done well. You have withstood the temptations and the test I have provided for you. Blessings upon you, sir." "And on you," said Sir Gawain. And he turned, and he got on his horse, and away he went across the forest. And it was winter, and he rode all that day through the forest towards the palace of King Arthur. And in that palace, well, it was the winter solstice, the darkest day of the year, the longest night. And on this day, once again, everyone was gathered for a great feast. And the food was ready, all there in the royal kitchen. And all the lords and ladies were there in that banquet hall, but the plates were empty, and the goblets were empty as well. And once again, Arthur there, sitting beside his queen Guinevere, he stood up and he said, "Dear friends, today we are gathered on the winter solstice, when darkness is at its height. On this day I declare, we must nourish our bodies but our souls as well. I declare I will not eat until I have seen a great and magical wonder." Everyone waited. What would happen? What could possibly happen with everything locked down in this way, frozen at this time of year? And then they heard a clatter of hooves and a shout from the edge of the castle at the gate. And the hoofs came closer. A horse was coming through the castle as it had the year before. And then into the room came Sir Gawain, riding on his horse. And everyone cheered to see him. And he stood in the middle of the hall, and in his right hand there was a sprig of holly. And he took this holly, and he placed it on the head table there, beside King Arthur and Lady Guinevere. "Friends, let us eat," said King Arthur. "Let us eat." And he clapped his hands, and the servants came out with the food. And the goblets were filled with sparkling, honey-hearted wine, and there was roast meat on the tables, and bread and cheese, and all manner of exotic and wonderful things. And Sir Gawain was embraced by his friends and welcomed to that feasting hall. And he sat down at a table, and he told his story. His story about the Green Knight and the trials he'd undergone there as he traveled through the world, finding this man, and his time there in the palace, and his time there in the Green Gully. So he told his story to everyone there. And they were nourished by this story as they were nourished by the foods before them. And after that feast was over, everyone went off to sleep. For darkness had covered the world, darkness and the light of the circling stars above. And in that feasting hall, servants came, and they took the plates away. And a boy went from table to table, snuffing out the candles. And he went to the head table there, where Arthur and Guinevere had sat. And he saw the sprig of green holly, the holly which protects the sprouts of the oak trees in the forest. And for a moment he thought of throwing that holly out with the kitchen scraps. And then he decided it would be best to leave it there. Thank you for listening to this story. Thank you for letting it live amongst us here.